Why do so many of us feel lost? You might have a good job, a stable life, maybe even a family. But deep down, there's a feeling, like something is missing. Maybe you felt this too, like you're playing a role, living according to expectations, but not truly you. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, believed this happens because we don't truly know ourselves. Instead of looking inward, we search for meaning outside, through relationships, success, or distractions. But Jung had a different answer. He believed that true fulfillment comes when we look within, when we confront our unconscious mind, our hidden fears, and our unacknowledged desires. And only then do we awaken to who we really are. In this video, we'll dive deep into Jung's most powerful ideas, why we avoid looking within, why it's the key to personal growth, and how you can start your own journey of self-discovery today. Let's begin. Most of us spend our lives looking outward, seeking validation, approval, or meaning from the world around us. But why? Jung believed that we avoid looking within because we're afraid of what we'll find. Think about it. Have you ever had a thought so uncomfortable that you immediately pushed it away? Maybe a desire that didn't fit with how you see yourself? Or a fear that you refuse to acknowledge? Jung called these the shadow, the parts of ourselves that we reject, repress, or ignore. For example, let's say you always see yourself as a kind person, but one day you feel intense anger or jealousy. Instead of acknowledging it, you push it away. That's not me, you think. But here's the thing. Just because you ignore it doesn't mean it disappears. It stays in your unconscious mind, shaping your behavior in ways you don't even realize. Have you ever noticed how some people criticize others for the very things they secretly struggle with? That's their shadow, projecting onto others what they refuse to see in themselves. Jung believed that to truly grow, you have to face your shadow. And that's where the journey of looking within begins. Most people go through life playing a role. You wake up, put on a smile, go to work, and act the way you're expected to act. You adjust your personality depending on who you're with, professional at work, casual with friends, maybe a little more reserved around family. But here's the real question. Are you being yourself, or are you just playing a role? Carl Jung believed that every person has two sides. The persona, the mask you wear for the world, and the true self, the deeper, authentic version of who you really are. Most of us spend so much time perfecting our persona that we lose touch with our true selves. But what happens when the mask doesn't fit anymore? That's where the real journey begins. Jung called the persona the mask we wear in society. It's the version of ourselves that we present to the world so that we can fit in, be accepted, and function in different social roles. Think about it. You behave differently at work than you do at home. You speak to your boss differently than your best friend. You might suppress your emotions in public but express them privately. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, we need a persona to survive. Without it, you wouldn't be able to adapt to different social environments. Imagine if you spoke to a client the same way you joke around with close friends. It probably wouldn't go well. But here's the problem. When your persona becomes your identity, you lose connection with your true self. Instead of using the persona as a tool, you start living as the mask, trying so hard to be liked, to fit in, to be good enough that you forget who you really are. And over time, that creates an inner conflict. How do you know if you're more attached to your persona than your true self? Here are some signs. 1. You feel like you're always performing. Do you ever feel like you have to act a certain way just to be accepted? Maybe you feel pressure to be the funny one, the smart one, the strong one, or the responsible one. You play the role people expect from you, even when you don't feel like it. This can be exhausting because deep down, you know you're not being your true self. 2. You suppress parts of yourself to be liked. Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But most people don't feel that privilege. They feel pressure. Pressure to be nice, even when they're frustrated. Pressure to be successful, even when they're unhappy. Pressure to be normal, even when they don't fit in. They hide their real thoughts, emotions, and desires because they fear rejection. But the more you suppress your real self, the more disconnected you feel. 3. You're afraid to be alone with yourself. Many people fill their lives with distractions, social media, work, endless socializing, because silence is uncomfortable. Why? Because when there's nothing left to distract you, the truth comes up. The mask drops, and you start facing the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. If sitting alone in silence feels unsettling, it might be a sign that you're not fully connected with your true self. Jung believed that beneath the persona, beneath all the expectations, social conditioning, and self-image, there is something far more real: your true self. This is the part of you that isn't trying to impress anyone. It isn't worried about what people think. It's the raw, unfiltered version of you, the part that knows what you truly want, feel, and believe. But here's the thing: most people don't know their true self. Why? Because they've spent years building their persona. Since childhood, you've been shaped by parents, teachers, peers, and society. You were taught, be polite, don't cry too much, don't be too loud, be successful, be the right kind of person. Slowly, you start molding yourself into what other people want you to be, until one day, you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself anymore. But here's the good news: you can reconnect with your true self. So, how do you stop being controlled by the persona and start living as your authentic self? Here are 3 powerful ways to begin. 1. Ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? The first step is to get honest with yourself. If no one was judging you, how would you dress? What would you do with your time? What kind of life would you actually want to live? The answers to these questions will reveal the real you. 2. Identify the roles you've been playing. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what role am I playing in life? Are you the people pleaser who says yes to everything? The perfectionist who always has to be successful? The tough one who never shows emotion? These roles might have helped you survive in the past, but they are not your true identity. Recognizing them is the first step to letting them go. 3. Reconnect with your inner child. Jung believed that to find your true self, you have to reconnect with who you were before the world told you who to be. Think back to your childhood. What did you love to do before you cared about being cool or successful? What kind of person were you before life got complicated? What dreams did you have before society told you what was realistic? Your inner child holds the key to your true self. Most people live their entire lives as their persona. They build their identity around what other people expect from them, never realizing that there's something deeper inside. But once you start peeling back the layers and reconnecting with your true self, something amazing happens. You stop caring so much about approval. You start making choices that actually make you happy. You feel a deep inner peace because you're no longer living a lie. And this is what Jung meant when he said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Looking outside, chasing status, approval, and validation keeps you asleep. But looking inside wakes you up to who you truly are. But there's one more layer to all of this. What happens when you go even deeper, beyond the persona, beyond the true self, and into the unconscious mind? In the next section, we'll explore how hidden thoughts, fears, and emotions shape your life without you even realizing it, and how to uncover them for true self-discovery. Most people believe they are in control of their thoughts, actions, and decisions. But what if I told you that the majority of what you do, think, and feel isn't actually conscious? There's another force at play, one that influences everything about you. This is the unconscious mind, the hidden part of your psyche that stores your deepest fears, desires, and forgotten experiences. Carl Jung believed that true self-discovery doesn't happen on the surface level. It happens when you dive into the unconscious. But what exactly is the unconscious mind? And how does it shape your life without you even realizing it? Let's break it down. Imagine your mind is like an iceberg. The part you can see above the water, that's your conscious mind, the logical, rational part of you that makes everyday decisions. But below the surface, hidden deep beneath the water, is something much larger. That's your unconscious mind. This is where all your past experiences, childhood memories, repressed emotions, and hidden beliefs live. And whether you realize it or not, they control you. Think about it. Have you ever reacted strongly to something and later wondered, why did I get so upset about that? Have you ever fallen into the same toxic relationship patterns even when you swore you wouldn't? Have you ever had self-sabotaging thoughts, like I'll never be good enough or I don't deserve happiness, even when there's no logical reason to believe that? These aren't random thoughts. They come from your unconscious mind. Jung believed that what we don't bring into awareness will continue to control our lives until we finally face it. Your unconscious mind influences you in 3 major ways. 1. Emotional triggers. Your past is always present. Have you ever had someone say something to you that shouldn't have made you so angry, but it did? Or maybe someone ignores you, and you instantly feel rejected, even though they weren't trying to hurt you. This happens because your unconscious stores unresolved emotions. For example, if you were criticized a lot as a child, you might react strongly to even small criticism as an adult. If you grew up feeling unseen, you might feel deep resentment when someone forgets to invite you somewhere. If you experienced abandonment, you might panic whenever someone pulls away, even if it's temporary. Your reactions today are often echoes of your past experiences, but because they live in your unconscious, you don't realize where they're coming from. 2. Self-sabotage. The invisible forces blocking your success. Ever feel like you're your own worst enemy? Like you want something, but for some reason you keep getting in your own way? That's because your unconscious mind is trying to protect you. Let's say you want to be successful, but deep down you believe, I don't deserve success. Maybe that belief came from childhood, where you were told not to get too big for yourself, or that successful people are greedy. So even though you say you want success, your unconscious is secretly working against you. It might cause you to procrastinate on big opportunities, downplay your skills in important moments, feel guilty whenever things start going well. Until you uncover the real reason behind your self-sabotage, no amount of motivation will help. 3. The shadow self, the parts of you that you reject. Jung introduced the concept of the shadow self, the parts of you that you push away because they don't fit with the good version of yourself. If you see yourself as kind, you might reject your anger and feel guilty whenever you're upset. If you see yourself as strong, you might bury your fears instead of dealing with them. If you see yourself as selfless, you might deny your own needs and feel resentment toward others. But here's the thing, your shadow doesn't go away just because you ignore it. It shows up in your life in subtle and sometimes destructive ways. It comes out when you judge others for qualities you secretly have yourself. It shows up in passive-aggressive behavior because you don't want to admit when you're angry. It drives addictions, obsessions, and toxic patterns because you're trying to fill an unconscious void. The key to self-discovery is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming whole, accepting all parts of yourself, even the ones you've been hiding. So you might be thinking, how do you bring these hidden parts of yourself into awareness? How do you unlock the unconscious mind and truly begin self-discovery? Here are 3 ways. 1. Pay attention to your dreams. Jung believed that dreams are the direct language of the unconscious. They reveal parts of yourself that you don't acknowledge in waking life. Next time you have a strange or vivid dream, write it down. Look for recurring symbols or emotions. What might your unconscious be trying to tell you? 2. Watch your emotional reactions. Whenever you overreact to something, whether it's anger, fear, or sadness, ask yourself, is this reaction really about this moment, or is it bringing up something deeper? Your strongest emotional reactions often point to hidden wounds from the past. 3. Shadow work and self-reflection. One of the best ways to access the unconscious is through shadow work, a process of exploring your hidden fears, desires, and suppressed emotions. Try asking yourself, what qualities do I judge in others? This can reveal what you reject in yourself. What am I afraid of admitting to myself? What do I keep repeating in my life? Why? Journaling, meditation, and therapy can all help you go deeper. Most people live on autopilot, controlled by unconscious fears, habits, and beliefs they don't even realize they have. But when you begin looking within, when you start uncovering your unconscious mind, you gain something incredibly rare: freedom. Freedom from past conditioning, freedom from self-sabotage, freedom to make choices that actually align with who you truly are. And this is the key to self-discovery. So what happens when you actually take this journey inward? How does looking within transform your life in ways you never expected? Stay with me, because in the next section, we'll explore exactly what happens when you confront your unconscious mind and why it's the most powerful thing you'll ever do. So what actually happens when you start looking within? The short answer? Everything changes. The way you see yourself, the way you relate to others, and even the way you experience life. It all shifts. But before we get into the incredible benefits, let's talk about the first thing you'll experience: discomfort. Looking within sounds great in theory, but in practice, it's hard. At first, you'll feel resistance. You'll notice a strong urge to distract yourself, scrolling on your phone, binge-watching Netflix, or diving into work. Why? Because your mind is protecting you. For years, maybe even decades, you've built a certain image of yourself, the person you think you are. Looking within threatens that image. It forces you to question long-held beliefs about yourself, your past, and even your identity. That's uncomfortable. For example, let's say you've always seen yourself as a good person, but when you start exploring your unconscious, you realize you sometimes manipulate people to get what you want. Or maybe you see yourself as strong and independent, but deep down, you crave validation and fear being alone. These realizations can be painful, but they're necessary, because once you face the truth, you gain something far more valuable: freedom. Once you move past the initial discomfort, you start to notice something amazing. You're no longer trapped by the same old patterns. The toxic relationships you kept repeating, you start to see why you were drawn to them in the first place. The self-sabotage that kept ruining your progress, you begin to understand the hidden fears behind it. The anger, jealousy, or insecurities you used to project onto others, you realize they were really reflections of something inside you. When you look within, you connect the dots. You start to see how your past experiences shaped your present behaviors. For example, maybe you always fear being abandoned in relationships. When you look within, you remember a childhood experience where you felt unloved. That fear has been running in the background your whole life. Maybe you always put others first and struggle to say no. Looking within, you realize you learned this pattern from a parent who only showed you love when you were useful. Jung believed that once you bring something from the unconscious into awareness, it loses its control over you. In other words, you gain power over your own life. As you keep looking within, something incredible happens. You start to feel whole. Instead of rejecting parts of yourself, you integrate them. You stop running from your emotions and learn to work with them. You stop pretending to be someone you're not and embrace who you truly are. You stop seeking validation from the outside world and find confidence from within. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming your most authentic self. And here's the most surprising part. You don't have to fix anything. A lot of people think personal growth means changing themselves. But real transformation happens when you accept yourself, your strengths, weaknesses, flaws, and all. Because when you stop rejecting parts of yourself, you stop feeling lost. You stop searching for meaning outside of yourself. You realize everything you were looking for was already inside you. And this takes you to the last stage. You experience a deep sense of peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from having a perfect life, but the kind of peace that comes from fully knowing yourself. You stop being controlled by old fears and insecurities. You stop caring so much about what others think. You become more present, more grounded, and more you. Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." Most people spend their lives chasing dreams, more success, more money, more approval. But those who look within, they wake up. They realize that true fulfillment, true peace, and true meaning don't come from the outside world. They come from knowing and accepting who they truly are. And that, more than anything, is what happens when you look within. So how do you start this journey for yourself? How can you begin looking within and uncovering the deeper layers of your unconscious mind? In the next section, we'll go over 3 powerful ways to begin your self-discovery process today. Stay with me, because this next part could change your life. Jung didn't just give us theories. He also gave us practical ways to explore the unconscious. Here are 3 steps to begin. 1. Shadow work, journaling your hidden self. Take a journal and ask yourself, what triggers me in others? This often reflects something I haven't accepted in myself. What emotions do I push away? What fears hold me back? Write freely without judgment. The goal isn't to fix anything, it's to understand yourself more deeply. 2. Pay attention to your dreams. Jung believed that dreams are a direct line to the unconscious. Before bed, set an intention. What is my unconscious trying to tell me? When you wake up, write down your dreams, even if they don't make sense. Over time, patterns will emerge. 3. Practice radical honesty. Self-deception is the biggest roadblock to looking within. Start being brutally honest with yourself. Catch yourself when you make excuses, when you blame others, or when you pretend to be fine when you're not. Ask yourself, what truth am I avoiding right now? This alone will change your life. Carl Jung's work isn't just psychology, it's a roadmap to self-discovery. Looking within is uncomfortable. It's messy. It's not a one-time thing, it's a lifelong process. But the reward? A life of deep self-awareness, inner peace, and true fulfillment. Most people live their entire lives asleep, trapped in their persona, afraid of their shadow, disconnected from their true self. But you don't have to. Your journey starts today. Look within, wake up, and become who you were meant to be. If this video resonated with you, hit that like button to support our channel and subscribe for more deep psychology insights. Let me know in the comments. What's one truth about yourself you've recently discovered? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.